Enemy Expatriation Act. It's sponsored by Republican Congressman Charles Dent of Pennsylvania and Congressman Jason Altmaier, a Democrat, also from Pennsylvania. A companion bill, by the way, was introduced in the U.S. Senate by Senator Joe Lieberman of Connecticut and Senator Scott Brown of Massachusetts. So what exactly does the EEA do? Well, it adds engaging in or supporting hostilities against the United States to the list of acts for which United States nationals would lose their nationality. Congressman Dent has a video in which he explains why this bill is necessary.
That a person who is purposefully and materially supporting acts of terror against the United States is demonstrating that they have no intent in acting as a U.S. citizen.
And that is pretty much the sum of why the congressman believes this act is important. But there is a specific case he also mentions as the catalyst for the EEA.
With the recent death of U.S.-born radical cleric Anwar al-Awlaki, the sanctity of American citizenship and its crucial role in our dialogue regarding national security is now garnering increased and bipartisan attention.
So this bill has been crafted to deal with issues already created by the execution of a U.S. citizen without any due process. Reality Check has been one of the only media sources calling out our government for its decision to execute Anwar al-Awlaki, a Muslim cleric in Yemen. As I've told you, U.S. intelligence agents claimed that al-Awlaki had influenced the Fort Hood shooter, the would-be Christmas Day underwear bomber, and the failed Times Square bomber. The president ordered his death, and it was carried out on September 30th of last year. A drone strike killed al-Awlaki, who was a U.S. citizen. He was born in Las Cruces, New Mexico. 2 weeks later, a second drone strike was used to kill his 16-year-old son, Abdul Rahman al-Awlaki. That 16-year-old was at a family barbecue at the time. He, too, was a U.S. citizen born in Denver, Colorado. But if the two were terrorists, why can't the U.S. go after them as the president did? Well, a couple of reasons, the most important of which is a little thing called due process. Under our Constitution's 14th Amendment, no state shall deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. As I've told you in the past, al-Awlaki was given no due process, never charged with a crime, never indicted, never had charges brought against him in a military tribunal. He was not given the opportunity to face an accuser. And because of national security issues, the evidence against al-Awlaki was all a secret. You see how this works? So the answer, obviously, the Enemy Expatriation Act. If the Constitution protects citizens from having their lives taken without due process, then, as Congressman Dent said, just take away their citizenship, therefore taking away their constitutional protections.
Notably, this legislation would only modify an existing statute or law which has already been found constitutional.
So here's what you need to know. It is true that there is already existing law that allows for forcible expatriation. But what Congressman Dent may not realize, or maybe he does, is that even under the addition of the EEA, it would not have been enough to expatriate al-Awlaki or his son. First, the person must be over 18. So Abdul Rahman wouldn't have been eligible for expatriation. In addition, there is a high standard for revoking citizenship, and it includes this. The party claiming, in this case the feds, that a person has lost his U.S. citizenship has the burden to prove by a preponderance of the evidence the performance of an act of expatriation and the intention to relinquish citizenship. In Anwar al-Awlaki's case, there was no preponderance of evidence. Just two Justice Department lawyers making the decision. No judicial panel, no transparency, nothing. In fact, reports indicate that when the decision to execute al-Awlaki was made, it was 2 years before his death. And those two Justice Department lawyers, they never evaluated the evidence against him. Congressman Dent's EEA would not have legally applied, making it either ineffective legislation or just the first piece of reestablishing the law of forcible expatriation. And that is Reality Check. And I did mention the 14th Amendment there. Obviously that applies to states, but the 5th Amendment is the federal clause guaranteeing due process. Before we go tonight, I want to leave you with this. Many times people will say that the war on terror, it's changed everything. That there are new powers that must be utilized by the feds in order to keep the American people safe. And if we have to give up a few of those rights to be protected from terrorists, then it's okay. At least one of our founders would likely not agree. February 17, 1775, Benjamin Franklin wrote in his notes to the Pennsylvania Assembly these words: "They who give up essential liberty to obtain a little temporary safety, deserve neither liberty nor safety. Thanks for tuning in tonight on air and to the thousands watching this live stream here in the U.S.